Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Jones, the Managing Director of Impact Minerals Limited, listed on the ASX under code IPT, and we are bringing our Lake Hope High Purity Alumina project in Western Australia into production over the next few years.
Mike, welcome to London.
Thanks very much, Matt. It's great to be here.
For the last few years of this conference. So, I know it's great. You're meeting lots of investors, industry, etc. But my goodness, it's a long old week, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But first time I've done resourcing tomorrow, or mines and money, and it's been great actually. Been very good uptake of meetings, and been very busy.
Yeah, I think it'd be especially good for you because you're at that kind of inflection point where. And we'll talk about it in a second, solving things or cracking the code technically, because the project itself fairly simple. In fact, why don't we start with that for people new to this? We'll take a brief education on HPA, and more importantly, what you've got and how you extract the HPA.
Yeah. So high purity alumina is a niche mineral. It's not widely known, but it's a crucial part of the energy transition that we're all going through. And it's also increasingly used in a wide range of high-tech industries. The principal use is in LEDs, which are fairly mundane, but most of the lights in here would have at the back of the light-emitting diode, thin wafer of sapphire, and that sapphire is made out of high-purity alumina. We're seeing banning of incandescent light globes. That's already been happening for a decade. Fluorescent globes are the next to go, and as the world electrifies in the third world, we're just seeing growing demand, and that's the main market and the simplest one to sort of look to people. First, broken the rule. I got my phone switched on.
It's investors.
This is right. Oh, yes, you can buy. You can buy. That's right.
We've not had that for a while, actually. Well done. Okay, and then so that's the use case.
That's the main use case in through there. Right. There's a wide range of other things, medical ceramics, but the other growth area is actually sapphire itself. In particular, in optics, growing large sapphire crystals is one of the key end uses. We've done a lot of research into that as we go.
Right, and we've talked in the past, and people can look at some of the previous stuff on as the size of those markets and how you access them and so forth. So, but we haven't got much time today, so I want to kind of then get into the project proper. Yep. This is a dig and play project. Again, explain the kind of what you've got and kind of simplicity of the process.
Yeah. So, if you haven't been to Australia before, anybody, there's a large number of salt lakes there. So they're dry lakes for most of the year. It gets a bit wet during the winter. But in Western Australia, which is where our project is, there's a couple of salt lakes there that have a unique set of minerals. They're evaporites, for those of you who are technically minded, extremely fine grained, and it has an alumina-bearing set of minerals in there in the top 2 meters of the salt lake. So you can imagine straight away that that's going to be a fairly easy thing to dig up. And that's certainly the story that we've been telling and showing to investors, and that's probably the easy bit. Our intention is very simple: dig a hole 1 to 2 meters deep, stockpile the material, and then truck it off-site into Perth.
Right.
And that will certainly make the permitting of that mine a lot simpler and more straightforward than, say, a large gold project.
Cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
So we're not crushing, no explosives.
That's exactly.
None of that. Okay, so it's literally scoop it up, put it back in a truck.
Yeah.
And
take it off-site.
Then the hard bit was really the kind of basis of what I want to talk about today, right? Okay, you guys have come from different backgrounds, right? So there's a little bit of kind of very quickly having to get up to speed on this and bringing the right people in to help you understand the technical aspects of this, and it is super, super technical. So maybe talk about some of the team that you've got at the moment, which allows you to do that.
Certainly. So when we started on this journey, I knew that we were going to have to build out capabilities that we didn't have. The story of the mining is relatively straightforward, but we shouldn't shy away from the technical difficulties that will exist in any high purity business, whether you're in manganese or graphite or even lithium. And so that's been a journey that we've been on now for 18 months with the test work and the rest of it. And you learn a few things along the way. You learn a few secrets of why most of the other HPA projects have failed. Certainly using natural feedstocks. And that actually comes down to an acid use problem, which we can perhaps talk about. So over that time, we've had a couple of changes of people as we've gone through, but we've now got 4 key people on board. And if you've seen my presentations, I talk about the jigsaw puzzle. And the thing about HPA and industrial minerals, it's kind of inverted to the exploration game proper. So if you're trying to find a world-class gold deposit, that's the hard part. then you dig a hole, build a plant, and sell the gold. So industrial minerals and HPA, it's the opposite's true. There's lots of large deposits, but then you've got to process it, and then you've got to find customers, and that's the inverse. So we've built out the capabilities in the 4 key areas. That have an absolutely first-rate pre-feasibility study manager, because that's where we're at the moment. That'll be completed next quarter. Gentleman's name is Paul Henharan. Principal thing he's done recently, got Liontown from woe to go in about 2 years, and he's on board as well. And he's also doing another high purity project, because it needs a slightly different mindset to crush, grind, float in order to make the project work. And then we've got a husband and wife team, the Fegans. Between them, they have 50 years of experience at Alcoa Alumina. So very specific, and they have their own business in developing high purity minerals, manganese and HPA. So it's a fantastic team. They've built plants, alumina plants have got a very big understanding of how to make the chemistry work in a plant. And that's where the key skill, really comes in. So they're on board, and then finally, last piece of the jigsaw puzzle is marketing. Obviously, establishing relationships with clients. And we've recently got a gentleman on board, Joseph Casella, and he was ex-Tianchi, their commercial manager, and he's building out our strategy now in order to start that group.
Okay.
So capabilities, we've really done a good job, I think.
Okay, sales and marketing sales really can be confusing using the word marketing. Okay, you've alluded to one of the issues that you've come up against, obviously around the asset, etc. Can you maybe even talk very specifically in terms of what market are you selling into? Because there's various grades, various margins, and your product will allow you to compete in some of those. So what are you aiming for?
So the way to build the business in the HPA business is to go for what we believe is like the bulk areas where most of that is going to be sold. You need to, if you want to scale, you need to be able to sell relatively large amounts of material. It's a very significant market in very niche parts.
Because if this conversation is around what do you need to crack technically, the further refinement that is required for the skill set, for the cost, into a very niche and competitive space. So you're saying, actually, let's not make life too difficult for ourselves. There's a big enough market here on the LED side.
That's right.
You're getting with. Okay.
And so, and that's a 4N, 99.99% pure. That's the benchmark that we kind of use, and that's where the volume is in through there. There's lots of niche markets, as we mentioned, like for 5N and 6N, and you can get great margins there. But generally, the volumes are small, so you can't build a business around that. So we have the ability to make 5.9s, but that will come, as we sort of go down through the journey. That's right.
Okay.
Got to focus on getting the process working at scale, that we can produce 4N consistently at a quality that the offtake people want.
Right.
That's the first challenge.
PFS right now.
Yep.
In terms of the testing, you've got to move to pilot phase?
Yep.
Right. So what's that going to be? Because obviously lab, pilot, some kind of demonstration plant, and then commercial. So there's a ways to go. But can you move through that relatively quickly?
I believe so. So we recently got awarded a federal government grant. We've spoken about that before. Yeah. So it's 2.9 million Australian dollars. It's a 3-way research project between ourselves, CPC Engineering, which is where the wife of the Fegan team works, and she has a lot of HPA experience and also high purity minerals. So they've designed the process plant, which we based our pre-feasibility study on, and they helped us solve some of the technical issues that we came across in terms of acid use and acid regeneration. And then Edith Cowan University. So Edith Cowan, not well known for its mining sector, but they have a world-class membrane technologist there. And he's already got patents for lithium and rubidium and a few other things in the pipeline. And they use ceramic and PVC membranes to clean reagents and water up. And so they're taking a lot of technology from the water sector and bringing it into the mining sector. Not very well used, but when you see these things, they're quite amazing, and they're relatively cheap to produce. So our full intention is to build those into our circuit. Right. Our circuit currently works economically without those, so we believe that anything else we do from here is going to be a benefit.
I guess it's the scaling and trying to understand the economics. Yeah. Because and the sales side of things is really, really important. You need to understand the pricing.
Yeah.
What else is going out there in terms of supply? Because, like you say, not abundant, but there's a lot of projects that if people had the skill sets could flood the market.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be going into that marketplace. So sales important. Understanding the economics is important. So you've done a PA, right? So we understand some rough numbers.
Yes, scope of study. Yeah.
Numbers.
Yeah.
The PFS is going to take how long?
It should be finished definitely next quarter.
Next quarter,
When
okay.
in the next quarter.
So they'll firm up on some more real numbers.
Yeah.
Can you remind us sort of what we're looking at in the PAs?
Yeah, so the key numbers are obviously MPV, over $1 billion
Yeah.
post-tax, but the capital expenditure was 250 million Australian,
Okay. Wow.
which is pretty reasonable, ratio in through there. The numbers look pretty similar, so that's good news. And then the other key one is the operating cost. So we've been quoted previously, we can get it for $4,000 a ton.
Yeah.
In terms of production. Still believe we can get there. We're a bit higher than that at the moment, but that's related to this acid regeneration problem and reagent cost. So you learn a few things along the way. So you must be able to regenerate your acid in any HPA project that's using a natural feedstock. That's why all the others have not gone ahead, because you discover that you need an ocean of acid, even though you're only producing 10,000 tonnes per annum.
Yeah.
And there was a few sleepless nights when we kind of discovered that number in through there. But without going into too much detail, the way our process works, we only need acid for half the volume of material compared to anyone else. So straight up front, we've already got half that cost. And so off-the-shelf acid regeneration equipment actually solves the problem for us. So that's pretty good.
But how do you feel about the 250 compared to your market cap? Like if banking days, you came in and said, give me some money, 60% of this. I'm like, nope, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'd need to understand from you kind of certainty around, contracts or offtakes or however your sales guy sorts this out. And I'd also like to understand, could you be starting smaller, less capex, less pressure day one, more proof points, and then have either some modular scale up? These are things you've thought about, presumably, after you got the PA numbers back. Because they kind of look impressive on paper if you can access the capital cheaply.
That's right. And that comes back to the scale up that you just talked about. So whether we ever build a 10,000 tonne per annum plant as opposed to, say, 2,000 tonne per annum plants remains to be seen, because you'd need some pretty big contracts, to obviously justify that massive scale up. But I've been around too long, and there's still going to be a huge amount of technical risk as we scale up.
Yeah.
So the research project that we've got, we're going to have basically a bench scale pilot plant that will test the process from the start to finish. Everything we've done so far has been in batch mode in the laboratory. So we're going to build a mini plant, and it's going to be able to produce, I don't know, whatever the number is, say a kilo, of material at the other end through the whole process. At that point, we can demonstrate to clients that we're serious, customers, and we can provide them with consistent quality of material.
But they'll need a decent batch to test on, right?
The first stage is always that amount.
Right. Okay.
They generally just want a few hundred grams to a kilo, depending on the thing. They'll just bang it through a first pass test and say, look, it looks good. Send us 20 kilos. Okay. Each. That's right. So, and that pilot plant will be able to produce that over a period of time. So, we hope to get that pilot plant done by the middle of next year, because without the membranes, and then we'll just build those in as they come along. That will that'll help us get through solutions to two problems. One is providing material initially to the clients, and we mentioned Joseph building out our strategy. By that time we'll have a pretty good in-depth understanding of where we want to tackle the market, find our niche. But the second one is natural variability in the ore body. So, as is a natural living ore body, and we've still got to understand how the variability in the lake affects the process in the plant.
Yeah.
So geometallurgy, that's brought numerous companies undone, and I've learned lessons there.
Yeah.
So once that pilot plant's there, we can just push through material, consistently, and find out how the process affects it. Now, it should be fairly robust. It's hydrochloric acid leaching. It's pretty, it's a pretty aggressive leach, and so far so good. But we want to make sure that whatever the next scale is, we don't run into.
Where's this come from? Where's the acid come from? Who's supplying it?
Coogee Chemicals. It's a private family, big family company in Perth, and the piece of ground we've actually got our eye on. The hydrochloric acid plant is next door.
So all local.
Yeah.
Locally.
Yeah.
No, but so the reason I ask is like we speak to some companies and they kind of like relying on a kind of Russian-based supply system, and it's like maybe some issues there.
Yeah, no, that's right.
That's all local.
And that's why we're trucking it from site,
Yeah.
as well as speeding up the approvals process on the mining lease. It'll also speed up the environmental approvals on the sites. It's allocated industrial land, and we need 2 reagents going in. We need potassium hydroxide and we need hydrochloric acid, both available at the gate.
Yeah.
And then we'll produce potash as the primary byproduct.
Yeah.
And there's waste acid, which we hope to recycle, but depending on volumes, Coogee will take that off us as well.
Okay.
So the 2 things we need in and the 2 things we need out are right there. So
it's nice and simple. I think I guess if I'm looking at this as an investment proposition, which you hope I am, is that you can show this kind of end-to-end process works even at a kilo. Then it comes to right. Do I believe you can get the financing to build the various pilot demonstration and commercial, and those are not cheap things, and they are a barrier. So if I look back at the lithium sector in 2016 to 2017, that was the big barrier. Couldn't raise the money to be able to even build the proof point infrastructure. So again, how are you looking at that kind of access to finance and what exactly they're going to need to see from you? And is industry a big part of this? We're seeing industry moving upstream. It needs to, because the retail market's gone on holiday, right, or undercover somewhere. So where's the money come from?
Yeah, and we've always been able to find money. So,
but you're talking big chunks now.
No, that's right. So I'll explain the volume. So what we're looking to learn from the pilot plant in particular, as well as the technical details, is what is the next likely scale for us to be able to go up to in a safe manner without overstretching ourselves, not just financially but technically, as we put the whole thing together. And remember that I don't want people to think that it's not a complex process. It's just that you're using hydrochloric acid, not the easiest thing to use, but people do it all the time. So there's some special other things you need to consider, construction materials and health and safety in particular. So let's say, I'm picking figures out of my head a little bit, but in our presentations, we might be able to go from that to say 500 tonnes to 1,000 tonnes. And again, plucking a figure out of my head, that might be, say, 25 million or 50 million or something like that, in that kind of range, perhaps, to build that size of plant, depending on what comes out of it. That's a lot more achievable, at our market cap, which is sort of 35, 40, and hopefully we'll be able to build on that as we go. And you can probably arrange a bit of debt finance, maybe against some of that as we go forward. By that time, we're hopeful that our marketing is starting to work, and we're at least getting into qualification trials, etc., and we can demonstrate to people that we can provide product that they actually want.
Well, I think that's where all the certainty is going to come from, because industry will tell us, because they know, does this make sense, right? The market, we're full of hopes and dreams, right? The industry is saying to you, we'll take some of this, give me, 20 kilos, as you say, and there'll be a bunch of those, 10, 15 groups who may want to test it. So you've got to be able to at least produce that. And it I guess, validates, what you're doing from a technical perspective. And I guess they will also have bought into the fact that you've got enough of this stuff to be able to provide consistent supply for them going forward, right? That helps. But the money guys will definitely need to see that in place. Okay, it sounds a bit horse for the cart, or the cart for the horse. I think it is. Yeah,
whichever way around.
Whichever way around. If you can demonstrate, so how much effort is going into that today? Saying, look, this is coming up and coming. If we were able to, subject to, is this something that you'd be interested in? Where are you with?
You mean on the finance?
On the sales side now, to say, look, do things. I guess it's that smell test.
Yeah.
Are people saying, well, this industry is saying this could be okay?
Yeah. The best smell test is going to be once we've got that pilot plant in place. And so, in terms of the timing of putting everything together, we've got Joseph on board doing the marketing, very big in depth, and he's very well connected, and we're building up quite a good understanding of that market.
Yeah.
And it's been made very clear to us that you're almost wasting our time getting in touch with people too early on the promise that we're going to give you, a bag of...
Okay, well, give me the data then. I need the data. I need to know exactly what the size of the market, what the demand is properly, what the supply is properly. So and say, well, look, we're feeding into an oversupplied market. Oof, I don't fancy my chances here. Or is there a kind of delta? Is there an undersupply in the market which we can maybe plug that gap? I mean, where's that data come from? How valid is it?
There's a lot of work involved in that. And people worry about China, for example. We've actually done quite an in-depth study with SMN on the Chinese HPA market just to get a handle on that. And it's basically virtually all internal. In terms of the supply and demand for China in itself. They don't export a lot, and they actually import a few thousand tons of HPA a year at the high end, in the 4N and the 5N. So the nature of their process, it's well known in the industry, that their 4N is probably not quite 4N. And they get away with it. So once they go to the higher end, there's a thing through there. But the global demand, as opaque as the market is something in the order of 70 to 80,000 tons. Doesn't sound very much, but there's only a handful of of suppliers, of which Sumitomo is the biggest one, and then obviously we've got Alpha HPA sort of climbing up the ranks. What we can say there is. Alpha have indicated, and obviously selling their own market. They're building a plant for 10,000 tons, the benchmark, and they've got low interest government loans to help them do that. And they've indicated that there's indicative demand for 20,000 tons of HPA. So there's no shortage of demand, but we've been watching them very closely because the balance becomes getting the offtake and then getting the capital to be able to able to scale up. And that's a challenge we'll take on as we move through the technical challenges and demonstrate we can do what we say we can do.
I mean, the whole China thing's a really big deal at the moment. We're seeing China saying, well, actually, we're not going to export rare earths to the US now. It's a very combative environment out there, and that kind of has a knock-on effect with the financiers. So they say, well, look, if you're going to get a Chinese dependency for any part of your supply chain, no Kanduski, we're not financing this. And as an Aussie company, and Aussies have traditionally worked and fed into the Chinese market, does that kind of restrict your ability on the financing side, do you think? Or are you going to have to find European markets or Korean? So
the Gordon family office.
Gordon family office. Who say, well, look, we will finance this because we can see the market for this here in Europe or here in North America.
I think the supply chain security is obviously going to play a big part. Not giving any secrets away here, but for example, the US military uses quite a bit of sapphire glass in the windows of its jet planes and the tips of some of the missiles, things like that. And a rumour has it they get it from a country that they shouldn't really be getting it from, because there's no capacity to make sapphire in the US.
Right.
So there's potentially huge markets in
but like you said earlier, like DoD contract's fantastic, but it's and high margin because they spend money like they do, but it's not a big market. The 4N is where you're at, right? So because like I say, for me, I'd love to walk away and go, right, I understand the kind of route to capital and what's going to need for that capital to say yes, that's a low risk investment for me, because right now I think, as you say, the opaqueness is kind of like cobalt. It's kind of like a lot of these sectors where you just like even uranium would throw in there, right? People think, I can read the uranium market. They cannot. No. It makes it difficult as an investment proposition if I don't have that data. So I think show me the data that you guys putting together, then I can get a sense of what the demand can be. What is the Chinese impact in this market realistically, and what's your capability feeding into your chosen market of 4N in this case, and how do you capture that? If the big boys ramp up, is that a killer for you, or is that not touch the size when it comes to the demand.
Look, it's a learning journey. I have a PhD in research, and we've got the whole company, researching that. So I'll be right up front. I don't have all the answers to that, just yet. And
it's hard.
It's hard to find.
It's on you to give us that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I mentioned, we're developing a much more in-depth understanding of where all the different segments are in the marketplace, and then doing our best to sort of make our own estimates of supply and demand, etc. I'll give you an example of one of the things that we've learned that perhaps don't hear a lot of the other HPA producers talk about, is that there's a competitor to HPA appearing in the lithium-ion battery space, and that's a product called Boehmite. It does very similar things, but it's a lot cheaper. And when you look at the use of HPA in China, a lot of the HPA wannabes, we're going to use it as a separator. It's actually not used very much nowadays as a separator. There is in specialised units, and it's used as coatings on anodes and cathodes as well. But that market is not going to be as big as people have wanted to believe, for the last 5 years or more. So, and those are the sort of things you learn as you go down the journey and say, right, okay, let's just we should definitely be focused on the sapphire LED market and the variants on that. So as we go through,
okay, end of the year roundup, a lot happened, a lot learned. You know what you got to do. So what are we going to see from you in 2025?
Yeah. So first quarter, the PFS will be complete. Numbers look pretty reasonable, and then get stuck into the pilot plant. We've already kicked that project off. Thinking about size of the plant, ordering the equipment. It's relatively small, so the equipment's mostly available, so there's no long lead time things in through there. If we can get that done by middle of the year, that would be great. Obviously the membranes will come as and when it's sort of developed and fit in around the back. But then that'll allow us then at the back end of next year to really get stuck into the marketing. And all those questions you just asked there will be progressively answered as we move into the process. Look, following in Alpha's footsteps, we've been phenomenally successful. We take on board a lot of what they say about the size of the market and things like that, riding on the shoulders of people who've gone before, and look to make our entry there. I will say that out of the one or two others that are in the space, we've virtually caught them in the space of 18 months. Remember, we've only had this project for 18 months.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And because the nature of the deposit lends itself to this, rapid advancement to get to production. So, we aim to just keep that pace going. Next year and into 26 and 27. So,
good man.
Thanks very much, Matt.
Keep doing it. It has been quick. It's been rapid. So I look forward to seeing what you do next year.
Great. Thanks a lot.